Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today on this video, we're getting ready for the first Bassmaster Open out here on Sam Rayburn Reservoir in Texas. And we are here, as you can see, it's kind of busy here in the service yard because we just did our boat checks. We actually had Coast Guard check our boats too and give us these little nifty stickers. Got our Coast Guard inspection and yeah, just did all the safety stuff, showed them where my class 4 throwable is, fire extinguisher, got my other safety gear, made sure that the horn worked, the nav lights, all that stuff. Very, very important. We've actually done videos in the past about, on the water safety. Obviously, guiding in Alaska, that's kind of where I got my safety sense from. And I carry that into bass fishing because, I mean, when we fish big water. Sam Rayburn is a huge lake, very hazardous when it gets rough, and also you have all kinds of stumps, standing timber to worry about. So there's a lot of hazards out there. So having all your safety equipment dialed in is a big deal. But what I wanted to talk about today was actually getting your boat ready for rough water, because the first day of the tournament, we're looking at 10 to 20 mile an hour winds out of the north. Not the worst wind direction for Sam Rayburn, but like if you're crossing across the Ash Arm and some other areas of the lake, it can get pretty darn hairy. So it may be a little uncomfortable if they don't call it off, but that's up to Bassmaster. But anyways, I wanted to show you guys what I do to my boat. Just walk through all the different things that I check. And the very first thing that I really pay attention to is, of course, the engine, and how it's mounted and everything like this. You can see from Phoenix, they actually double up on the bolts here, which is something I really, really appreciate when it comes to Phoenix boats. They double up right here, and they double up where the engine attaches to the jack plate. And I think that's a really big deal that I haven't seen a lot of manufacturers do it. Maybe more do it nowadays. But all the other boats that I've run, they just have one bolt in there, and you shear one of those, you're pretty much dead in the water, pretty much. But anyways, the very first thing that I do when I know I'm going to be in some rough water is I check the tightness on those bolts. So any connection back here on the jack plate or on the engine, I run through. I carry, just a little socket to tighten the 3/4 inch nuts and bolts, and then I carry, this little wrench too. So we can tighten all of those, tighten them all the way down. I mean, just as tight as you can get them. A lot of times, from the factory, these were obviously tightened down properly, but just traveling down here for the first time, everything kind of loosened up. And so just making sure that all of that is tightened up, that is a big deal to me. So any fasteners like that, that's kind of the main thing that I check for. And then of course, I check my prop. So this is your lifeline on the water. If you're in real rough water and you're having a real tough time navigating some big seas, your prop is super important. Your engine is important for boat positioning and navigating, those type of waves, because if you lose your angle on waves, life gets a lot harder. So just make sure that there's no line, behind the prop. Take your prop off, check behind it, make sure that everything is tightened up and working properly, because you don't want your lower unit going bad and you don't want your prop going bad. Also do an inspection just for any visible weak spots, any cracks or anything like that. Because again, changing a prop in 4-5 footers or bigger is not fun. Really, anything other than calm, just flat calm conditions, changing out your prop on the water sucks, especially when you're in the middle of the lake. So you don't want to be surprised by that. Otherwise, I haven't had this issue with Phoenix. But past boats that I've had, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll take off the rub rail if I've already been through some rough water and I'm about to go back through some more rough water. I'll take off the rub rail and check all the screws and just make sure that they're all tightened down. And one thing that I will look for is if there's like waviness in your rub rail here, that may be a sign that you've got some screws backing out. So just keep an eye on that. I always carry a bunch, about a few dozen at least, replacement screws for those. And yeah, you never know when you're going to need it. All right, so the other weak points on your boat are going to be your graph mounts. So Bass Boat Technologies makes, in my book, the strongest mount. This one is not going to be moving. I'll tighten down these knobs. That one needed a little bit of tightening. Tighten those down, but as you can see, the BBT mounts are absolutely rock solid. But just check everything. Just make sure everything's tightened. This is the one that is going to give you the most trouble on the bow with any mount. Again, the BBT mount is rock solid, so I'm not really worried about it. It doesn't move at all when I move it like that, but on the water you're gonna see some movement generally. But this mount, I choose my mounts based on how squat they are and how stout they are, and the BBT mounts are always the ones I put on the boat because they are just so rock solid. And this one actually has a hinge, so I get the best of both worlds. I can actually access my access port here without taking off the whole thing. But just check all your connections here, make sure that all the screws are on there and tightened, all those nuts are tightened and everything. Put some Loctite on there if you have to. And so these mounts are definitely a weak point on your boat. And then of course the trolling motor. All right, so a few years ago we fished a tournament out of Sandusky Bay, Ohio. A lot of us were making the 70+ mile run. I made a 95-mile run each way from Erie, from Sandusky all the way up to Anchor Bay in St. Clair. And a lot of guys came back with their trolling motors ripped off their boat, or their trolling motor bounce busters punching a hole through the fiberglass deck. Okay, so the biggest thing you want to make sure is that your bounce buster is set properly. I ended up buying this aftermarket cornfield fishing bounce buster for the power pole move. Very important. As stout as the power pole move mount is, dude, you need a bounce buster. Believe me, any trolling motor, you need it. And so make sure that that's set, not too loose. You don't want any movement. You don't want any bouncing, nothing like that. And then make sure you got a good strap. Another thing that I don't have on this boat yet, but I always put on my boats, I'm trying to figure out where it needs to go because it kind of angles over the gunnel here instead of over the carpet. But one of the things I like to do is I like to put a cleat somewhere right here so I can actually ratchet strap or cam strap around the trolling motor here. So if I'm making a really long run, I'm not going to be raising and lowering the trolling motor for a while, but I'm in some rough seas, I'll strap that down. That is the reason why on Erie that year I didn't have any trolling motor issues. Never had any trolling motor damage, and it's because I had that cleat there and I can tighten everything down. Most people just rely on the bounce buster and that Velcro strap up there. Not enough. So definitely do that. But other than that, just make sure that everything is in good working order. You do not want to be out there in rough water without things working properly or something loose. So bring spare bolts, nuts, screws, bring all that stuff, and just make sure everything's tightened before the day. So that is my suggestion for fishing rough water. Take it for what it is, and just be aware of everything. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. I'm going to see you out on the water. Make sure you trust the process.